through a process. We started in January. And big five firms did a nationwide search. Big five firms narrowed it down to one. Spent a lot of time this year on this.
I gotta imagine there's probably getting in a conflict situation sort of solve that.
We did go through the due diligence process.
Mhm.
So, instead of having my little group of 3 lawyers, I now co-chair a group of 6.
Not bad.
He's fake. Supervisor sucks.
Yeah. Especially lawyers like cat 33.
Interesting.
What's, oh, you want to postpone them?
We're very
Okay. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Have a nice day.
All right. David's ready? Marty's not here. He'll come back. All right, good afternoon and welcome. We're going to come to order. Afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, November the 1st, 2016 convening of the Baltimore City Board of Municipal and Zoning Appeals. A couple of housekeeping rules before we get underway. First, if you have a cell phone, a pager, anything that plays any kind of electronically generated audible sound, plays a ringtone, a chime, and the like, we ask at a minimum that you please turn those to a vibrate only, if not off position. And the reason for that is pretty simple and straightforward. First, cell phones, pagers, to the extent anyone still has a pager, and the like are disruptive not just to the general conduct of the proceedings, but also interfere with the recording of these proceedings. You can see that there are a number of microphones which are arrayed around us up here, and those microphones are all very sensitive, not only for the purpose of amplification, but they're also for the purpose of recording. And cell phones, pagers, and the like going off can get picked up by those, by that equipment, and is generally disruptive to that. On a related note, to the extent that you would like to have a conversation, we ask that you take that out to the double doors to your rear for the same reason. In addition, those of you who are forward of the wall above you can turn around and see that there are 1, 2, 3 video cameras mounted on the wall there, and there are 1, 2 video cameras mounted on the wall up here behind us. These proceedings are being recorded and streamed live on the city's cable access, I guess the website for the city's cable access network, stored on the city's YouTube channel, and also recorded for broadcast on the city's cable access network. So cell phones, pagers, conversations, and the like also generally disrupt that process as well. Moving on, we'll be voting at the end of the day after we've heard all of the cases, and you're certainly more than welcome to sit around and enjoy a civics lesson if you so choose. But if you have other things to do on this kind of gloomy, but I guess otherwise okay, fall afternoon, that's certainly understandable. And if you can take out pen and paper, I can read off the number for the zoning board office. You can call into the zoning board office in the morning and find out how we ruled in your case. I'll read this number off a couple of times. The number for the zoning board office is 410-396-4301. That number again is 410-396-4301. You will, however, need to wait until you receive the formal written notice of the outcome of your case. That should be forthcoming in about 3 to 4 weeks before you will be able to obtain your permits. And we certainly ask that you please not engage in a construction activity in the city of Baltimore without first obtaining all of your necessary permits. If you haven't already done so, if you're here in opposition to any case, please come forward and make sure that you've signed in on our signing sheet, which is being held up by Mr. Friends there. The signing sheet allows us to know generally which cases have opposition. Also allows us to know who needs to receive those aforementioned written notices I just talked about. Additionally, we have some cases which are being postponed, including one where someone did sign in opposition to that case. We need to know who you are and how to reach you to let you know when that case will be going forward, since those cases which are being postponed will not be going forward today. The procedure for when the cases are called is that if you're the appellant, you'll come forward and stand to our left or your right. The opposition, if any, will come forward and stand to our right or your left. Once everyone is up here, we'll get you all sworn in, and then we'll start first with the applicant, who'll be given the opportunity to tell us about what it is they're proposing, present any documents and witness testimony and the like in support of their arguments, and respond to any questions that the board may have. Once the applicant has finished their presentation, we'll then turn to the opposition, who'll be given the opportunity to present their side, present their arguments, their witnesses, documents, and the like in support of their positions in opposition to the appeal. Once the opposition is concluded, we'll then turn back to the applicant. We'll be given the opportunity to respond to any points brought up by their opposition and then to offer a closing statement. We won't be going back and forth and necessarily delaying things, even though there's not that many cases or folks here today on the cases which we have this afternoon, but still, we don't want to delay things any longer than need be. We'll generally be hearing the cases in the order in which they appear on our docket once we address some preliminary issues. First, as I had mentioned, there are some cases which are being postponed, and these cases will not be heard today. First case which is being postponed is 2016-335, 1113 South Charles Street. That case has been postponed and will not be heard today. Additionally, there are two more cases being postponed, actually three more cases. Actually, no, only two. 2016-340, 1015 West Baltimore Street. That case has been postponed until November 15th at 1 p.m. That case will not be heard today. In addition, 2016-351, 1210 Weldon Avenue. That case is being postponed as well. As of yet, that case does not have a date or it's been scheduled for, but so long as you are signed in on the signing sheet, we'll send you out notices when those cases are scheduled to be heard. Okay, and we have a rather large postponement. Cases number, and we have a lot of folks signed in on this too. So 2016-345, 2016-346, 2016-347, 2016-348, 2016-349, 2016-350, and 2016-352. All of these concerning properties in or around Robert Division and Lawrence Streets all of those cases are being postponed and will not be heard today. So long as you are signed in on those cases, we will make sure to send you out notices when they do get when those cases do get scheduled. But none of those cases will be going forward today. Coincidentally, that makes today's proceedings much shorter. All right. Next are the cases which are on our consent agenda. Once we get through these, our docket will be almost done. The cases on our consent agenda consist of cases where the board staff has reviewed these appeals and the board has determined that we have sufficient information based upon the record submitted to approve these appeals on a consent basis. We'll call the consent cases together as a group, so when I read them off, please try to stay in the order in which you're called. Once everyone is up here, we'll get you all sworn in. Then we'll call each case in turn, and you'll be given the opportunity at that time to present any information you would like to have added in order to supplement the record at that time. First case on our consent agenda is 2016-330, 133 East North Avenue, Mordecai Dolphine. you can stand just right there, and everyone else will line up down the dais behind him. The next case will be 2016-337, 311 South Durham Street, Nick Liparini. Also 2016-338, 2908 Dillon Street, also Nick Liparini. After that will be 2016-341, 1816 Bird Street, Alan Vornador. Then there'll be 2016-354, 2016-344, 3734 Falls Road, David Markland. Then will be 2016-354, 3200 St. Paul Street, Ryan Potter. Followed by 2016-355, 216 North Liberty Street, also Ryan Potter. And it will be 2016-356, 1118 McDonough Street, Ted Tedeschi. Then 2016-358, 3145 West Street, odd name, which will be Joseph Woolman. Okay, if you all can raise your right hands and be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
All right, calling the first case of 2016-330, 133 East North Avenue, Mordecai Dolphin. Afternoon, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
We have this as an application to use the premises as 4 dwelling units. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Mr. French, is there anything from the planning department?
Thank you. Martin French for the Baltimore City Planning Department. Planning Department has reviewed this application and has no objection to its approval. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Dolphin, is there anything further you would like to have added to supplement the record?
No, thank you.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we have determined there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank
luck.
you.
Take care. 2016-337, 311 South Durham Street, Nick Liparini.
Yes.
Afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
We have this an application to construct a 2-story rear addition at the premises. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And Mr. French, anything with respect to this appeal?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Liparini, was there anything you would like to have added to supplement the record this time?
Yep, nothing further.
Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we have determined that there was sufficient information to approve the appeal. Take care.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thanks.
All right. Next one is 2016-338, 2908 Dillon Street, also Nick Liparini. Mr. Liparini, we have this an application to construct a 2-story rear addition with rooftop deck at this location. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And Mr. French, anything with respect to this appeal?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Liparini, anything further you'd like to have added to the record to supplement this appeal?
Nothing further.
Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we have determined that there was sufficient information to approve the appeal.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye. 2016-341, 1816 Bird Street, Alan Vornador.
Hello, I'm Jeff Bonador, Allen's partner.
Okay, and Mr. Vornador, we have this application to construct a 2-story rear addition and rooftop deck at this location. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
All right. Mr. French, anything with respect to this appeal?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Vornador, anything further you would like to have added to the record this time?
No, sir, thank you.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we've determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Have a good day.
Take care. Next, 2016-344, 3734 Falls Road, David Markland.
Yes.
Afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone.
We have this as an application to construct a 2-story rear addition and rooftop deck at this location. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Mr. French, anything with respect to this appeal?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Markland, anything further you would like to have added to the record this time?
No, sir.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal.
Okay, thank you.
Take care.
Have a good day.
Next up, 2016-354, 3200 St. Paul Street, Ryan Potter.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Afternoon, Mr. Potter. Good to see you again.
Likewise.
We have this an application to use the premises as 4 restaurants to serve alcohol per the North Charles Village PUD. Is that correct?
That is correct, although, for the record, Mr. Chairman, one of our restaurant operators decided not to seek an alcoholic beverage license, so we're actually seeking 3 at this
right.
moment.
Thank you. We will revise that. Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
Yes, Planning Department reviewed this application, finds the application is consistent with the terms of the plan unit development, and recommends approval. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Tanner, you had noted that there's just some procedural notes with respect to this appeal regarding, I guess, operation of the PUD and the board's authority insofar as the liquor licenses are concerned.
Which the board really does not have authority to deal with. It's the wording in the PUD is a little conflicting there. We just want to follow up with planning to correct that for the future.
Yeah, agreed, and we would certainly support that. We inherited the PUD, so.
Of course. Yes. Anything further?
No, sir, thank you.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we've determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
And next, 2016-355, 216 North Liberty Street, also Ryan Potter. We have this as an application to consolidate the lots and construct a 4-story multiple-family dwelling with 71 dwelling units at this location. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And Mr. French, anything with respect to this appeal?
Planning Department has reviewed the application and has no objection. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Potter, anything further you would like to add?
Not at this time.
Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Next, 2016-356, 1118 McDonough Street, Ted Tedeschi.
Yes, sir.
Afternoon, sir. We have this an application to construct a 2-story rear addition and rooftop deck at this location. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. French, anything with respect to this appeal on behalf of the planning department?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Tedeschi, anything further you'd like to have added to the record this time?
No, sir.
Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you, sir.
Take care. Last but not least, 2016-358, 31 through 45, West Street, Joseph Woolman.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Afternoon, Mr. Woolman. Good to see you again.
See you.
We have this an application to relocate a restaurant with delivery service and construct a sidewalk. We will construct a side walk-in freezer addition. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything from the planning department with respect to this appeal?
Planning Department has reviewed this application and has no objection. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Woolman, anything further you'd like?
Just for the record, an appeal memorandum to include with the file along with the plan and nothing further.
Okay. On that note, zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, you determined there was sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay. Next, we will address the remainder of our docket, which will include cases where opposition is signed in. Frequently we found that opposition is a result of either a lack of communication or miscommunication amongst the parties. It can be useful to offer the parties an opportunity to have a dialogue amongst themselves to see if they can resolve whatever issues they may have between them. Obviously, if two opposing sides in a dispute approach the board and ask the board to resolve the dispute, one of those two parties is bound to go away from that, from whatever resolution the board comes to with a little bit of dissatisfaction, to say the least. And this is your opportunity to avoid that unhappy fate. At this point, we only have, I think, one case where opposition is signed in, and that's 2016-359, 4622 Hazelwood Avenue. Who are the parties in that case? Okay. And have you folks had an opportunity to speak? Yes? Okay. Any dialogue fruitful at this point?
No, I think we talked about.
No.
I don't know where that.
Spoke, but he's still in opposition.
Okay. Any desire to speak further, see if you can't get something resolved before moving forward?
It's all done with them. I would like to talk to them.
Certainly doesn't hurt. We only have a couple of cases left at this point, yours being one of them. So see if you can get anything done, and if not, then we'll go ahead and hear it.
Okay. All right, maybe we can say, he said no, so we can go ahead.
Okay, just have a seat. You'll wait. Okay. Calling our first case, which at this point is 2016-353, 1111 East Cold Spring Lane, Tracy Themack. Afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I'm not Tracy Themack. She works in my office. My name is Ed Donahue.
All right, Mr. Donahue. We have this as an application to install a 100-foot tall telecom antenna with ground equipment compound. Is that correct?
It is actually a 150-foot tall structure.
150.
It's correct
Sir?
in the staff report. It's correct in the application, incorrect on the agenda, I think.
Okay. All right. If all those intending to give testimony can raise their hands and be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All right. And do we have staff reports with respect to this appeal?
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that there may be some impact on the original Northwood National Register Historic District, which is near to this site, but this site is not part of that. On that basis, the Planning Department is recommending approval subject to these conditions. The antennas and related equipment must be painted to minimize their appearance to ensure they are visually unobtrusive as possible. The antennas and related equipment will remain mounted as illustrated in the plans and elevations to be submitted to planning, and the applicant will adequately mitigate any adverse effect as specified in the report of the Historical and Architectural Preservation Division of the Department of Planning in accordance with that report's recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Donahue, are those conditions acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Why don't you tell us about what is being proposed at this location?
Very briefly, Mr. Chairman, it's a pretty straightforward application. We identified one carrier. Recently, we've become aware of a second carrier who expressed interest in locating on the monopole. There is a monopole across the street at Morgan State University that is at structural capacity. So one carrier has not been able to do hasn't been able to do network upgrades on that site because of the structural issues.
Okay.
So that carrier has expressed an interest in moving its location over to the proposed facility. It's the same height as the tower across the street. So that would be Verizon and T-Mobile. Those are the two carriers' expressions of interest. We do have a proffer, if you will. We added a couple of parking places because we are proposing to take out a couple of the parking places in order to accommodate the compound. But beyond that, Mr. Chairman, it's pretty straightforward. We have reviewed the staff report. We're very pleased to have staff recommendation and certainly will abide by the conditions of approval. And we note that staff has indicated pending Section 106 review, and certainly we've initiated that process. We don't have the outcome of that yet, but we're certainly going to be in compliance with 106. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I failed to introduce. This is Paul Peckin, associate with Crown Castle up from Richmond. He's the project manager. Any details about construction, leasing? I think we can give you RF emissions as well. We'll give him any task as needed, but Paul's here from the applicant.
Okay. Any further questions?
Could,
All right.
one,
Yes.
Mr. French, could you read recite the planning's requirement again, or the report,
Yes.
planning's report, please?
Be happy to. The antennas and related equipment must be painted to minimize their appearance to ensure they are visually unobtrusive as possible. The antennas and related equipment will remain mounted as illustrated in plans and elevations to be submitted to planning, and the applicant will adequately mitigate any adverse effect as specified in the report of the Historical and Architectural Preservation Division of the Department of Planning in accordance with that report's recommendations. That mitigation would be basically required because of possible impacts, if any, visual on the original Northwood National Register Historic District. As I said, this property is not part of that district, but it is near to that, and it may be visible from some parts of it.
Okay, that was the part I wanted to hear again.
Okay. Any questions? Nope. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, 2016-359, 4622 Hazelwood Avenue, Nana Kari, well, Kari Kari. Okay. Mr. Kari Kari?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, we have this as an application to use a portion of the premises as an auto repair garage. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If all those intending to give testimony can raise their right hands and be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Do we have staff reports?
Yes.
Excuse me, before we start, please. I apologize for the handwritten site plan that I gave you, because I didn't know.
Well, we can get into that in a
Okay,
minute.
okay.
So. All right.
Okay.
Yes.
We have received in excess of 7 letters from residents located across the street and blocks away, all in objection to the proposed auto repair garage. They describe the existing conditions. Primarily, the garage is too close to residences and there is not enough indoor space or parking for the existing business. They are working on cars outdoors on the sidewalk, making it difficult and unsafe for pedestrians, particularly children. Working on and storing cars on the streets and posted no stopping and no parking areas. The cars occasionally block driveways and emergency vehicle access. The workers play loud music outdoors from 6 a.m. through as late as 1 to 3 a.m. And due to the proximity of the garage to residences, late night through early morning tow truck deliveries are too disruptive. There are untouched cars with expired, illegal, or no tags stored behind the business, surrounded with weeds that have been there for as long as 5 years. One letter accuses the operator of storing vehicles on nearby grass lots. The Frankfurt and Harbell Community Association both confirm the conditions as problematic and note that the intersection of White and Hazelwood is difficult to negotiate due to the vehicles parked on the street. The letters recommend disapproval of the request and are requesting to have reasonable restrictions applied to the existing business now, as the police do nothing when called. We also have received a letter from Councilman Brandon Scott. On behalf of the residents in this neighborhood, I urge you to take in consideration the facts as you render your decision. And then we have planning's report.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this property was the subject of a subdivision which was approved by the Planning Commission on December 10th of 2015. The property was originally L-shaped and basically wrapped around the property that is actually on the corner of Hazelwood and White, which is not a subject of this appeal today. The property that is the subject of this appeal is the portion of the original L-shaped lot that fronts on Hazelwood Avenue. There is a separate property now that fronts on White Avenue, which is also a commercial establishment that may or may not be used for repairing of automobiles. So the department feels that with the conditions which we're going to recommend and compliance with those conditions, this property at least should no longer present a problem to the community. The department recommends that approval of this application be subject to these conditions in addition to any conditions which the board may establish. There will be no parking, staging, or storing of vehicles on public rights-of-way. There will be no parking or storage of unlicensed vehicles on the property. All work must be performed indoors. All materials, parts, and equipment related to this use will be stored indoors. Any area used for temporary storing of vehicles will be adequately screened by an opaque fence or wall. And if a dumpster is used to collect waste and trash related to this use, the dumpster will be placed either inside the existing building or within a masonry enclosure having a solid lockable wooden gate. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Karikari, are those conditions stated by the planning department acceptable to you?
Yes,
Okay.
because like he said, I've been trying to do everything right. I've been living on a White Avenue for 8 years, you know, and my landlord, they're 76, 75 years old. They're gone, and also in order to do everything properly, I came through the board. I came before you guys to subdivide the land so that the commercial can be maintained properly and the resident can be maintained properly. And so I'm aware of all that. The problem that I was telling the association that the same problem that they see, I've seen, but the building unoccupied, people just come down there because the Conleys, they've been gone for almost 2 years now. But I've been going step by step. I went to Mr. Ville's office. I said, now this is my next step. What do I do to use the building? And so I said, I want to use this for the building, you know, like a head rating show. I said, okay, you need to go for a hearing. So I was not rushing to do anything because I have children that go to school at Hayward Elementary. If Miss Conrad can bear me a witness, I've been pushing my cars on Bayonne Road, you know, my children on a bike on Bayonne Road. I've been living there. I was the one, you know, so I will not do anything that will make it, you know, very, you know, difficult for my same neighborhood that I live. That's why I've been going through, making sure that I'm not in violation of the city, that I'm not doing anything in violation of zoning. That's why I'm being systematically, even when I was doing the subdivision, I notified Frankfurt, and I notified them that I'm doing the subdivision. So
Why don't you tell us about what it is you're proposing to do?
you know, to use the place for auto mechanic on a limited basis. That's a portion of the building. It's not a full
So
blown.
why don't you tell us about the general condition of the property as far as, you know, if there are other uses that are going on, if you can describe where those are in relation to where this contemplated use would
On
be.
the, I
any
think,
kind of parking.
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's all
Sorry
right.
about that. I believe the Frankfurt Association.
Don't worry about your opposition.
Okay,
You're here to present your case.
okay. On the other side, bordering for this White Avenue is an auto shop down there. And it has no relationship to the 4622 Eastwood Avenue at all. And the 4622 Eastwood Avenue now, I see you got your office indicated in the subdivision that is unoccupied. Because it's unoccupied, it's also causing problem because people come down here and park because they know there's nobody down there. And as part of the member of this,
This is the property right here?
yes,
Okay. And where would the auto repair garage be located on this picture?
this is the line of it. Okay. See, auto garage, this is a big way so that, you know, the repair can be inside.
Okay, so
Inside-
the
inside
auto
the
repair garage would be here.
Inside, yes.
Okay, all right. And it looks like there's maybe one,
Two garage behind it.
okay, so there's two garage bay
About
doors
4
there?
garage behind it.
I'm sorry?
About 4 little garage behind it,
Okay,
behind the big workshop.
is that what you're talking about that's behind it?
Yeah, this one is a 1, 2 small garages,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a big one like that. See it right there. So it's 1, 2, 3, and a big one.
Mm-hmm.
So use that portion, the big one, you know, just inside, you know, do that.
Okay, so how many of the bays are you proposing would be used in this project?
How many of the?
Of the bay doors would be used in this project?
I mean, the
Because I
big
think you
door-
just described that there are a total of 4.
Yeah, it's a total of 4.
Okay, so are all 4?
No,
Okay, so how many are you proposing to use here?
the one in the front.
Okay, so just this big one here?
Yes,
Okay, all right. And how many cars can they service in there? Because it looks kind of like a large space.
I would say when the lifters go in there, I think it would take about 3 lifters. Only
Okay.
about 2 to 3 lifters, nothing more than that.
Okay, all right. And where are the cars going to be parked while they're awaiting to be, while they're waiting to be
Yeah,
served?
if you look at the other building, it's an L shape. It has a triangular shape in front of it. When the sign company was there, we used to be a sign company. The L-shaped part is where the trucks and everything park. That's why, on my next paper
You
that
say
I
the
have.
triangular piece, you're talking about this
Yes,
driveway portion here?
yeah, this is a triangular piece over there. That's not gonna take nothing more than even 6 cars. That's why I'm saying that it's not gonna be a full-blown, because most of the cars will repair inside, because I live.
So how many, the cars that are waiting to be serviced, where will they be parked?
On the triangular,
Okay, on this triangular
about
piece.
maybe 3, 4 cars.
Okay.
That it takes.
All right, so whatever cars are waiting to be serviced, they're gonna be on this piece in front?
That's it.
Okay. All right. And how about the workers' cars? Like, the people, the mechanics and the like, when they come in to work, where are they gonna park their car?
What? That's a good question, because that's what, if you see the triangular shape in front when the sign company there, you can still park, 2 cars in front of the office. You can still park 2 cars in front of the office. That is not gonna be part of the, yeah.
Can they have, like, any of the, like, is any of this
Yes.
parking back here? Are they able to use any of that?
They can't use the parking back there because that's residential, when
Okay.
I divided it. So that would not be allowed for them to use the parking back there. But at least, the small, shop over there, they can put the cars in there, or just 1 car. It's not like I said, it's gonna be maybe 1 or 2 lifters in there. It looks big from the top, but the inside is about, can take only about 2, 3 lifters up there. So not gonna be.
Looking at this little larger blow-up here, there's a pickup truck that's parked there. So, yeah, I can see that there maybe you get 3 to 4 cars
That's over there.
there.
That's like I said.
But if your workers aren't able to park there, or I guess it's either the workers are parking there or the cars that are waiting service park there. Or maybe some small mixture of the two. But,
So,
okay. And then what hours would you be, like how many days a week would you be open? How long would they be open?
well, basically, from, I would say, 9 to 5, 9 to 6, nothing more than that, make sure that, like I said, I live there, and I'm concerned about,
You live where, sir?
I live on 4611 White Avenue. I own that's why I subdivided land and I bought it after I subdivided.
In the house there? Okay.
After I subdivided it, then I bought it.
So let me ask you a quick question. This is the drawing you did.
Yeah, and that's what I was apologizing.
That's
I
right, you
wanted-
don't have to apologize, just
did
have a
it.
quick question, where it says the back of 4611
Yeah,
White
that's
Avenue residence.
residential now. On that
Do you
subdivision.
intend to use that for auto repair, or no?
No, that's residential.
Okay. Any questions? No. Anything further, sir?
No, sir.
Okay. Who's speaking for the opposition?
I will. I think, what you've already
Name, please,
read.
ma'am.
I'm Nancy Conrad, and I live at 4513 Bayonne, so I'm a block away from that corner. But I'm speaking for myself and many of the neighbors, I think 37 neighbors, signed a petition, which I will present to you, and some of them have written letters. We've all been very upset about that corner and how the auto businesses or business has grown on that particular corner. We're very concerned about all of the parking all over the street, the cars being worked on the street, and this would just expand auto business on that street. I am concerned about all of the cars that I'm hearing would not be on the street, when right now I know that this morning were 8 cars parked on the grass behind this gentleman's house.
If I can interrupt you
yeah.
for a moment. Mr. French, can you run down what the proposed conditions offered by the planning department would be, and I guess which have been accepted at this point by the applicant?
Yes, thank you. The planning department conditions recommended are: first, there will be no parking, staging, or storing of vehicles on public rights-of-way. Second, there will be no parking or storage of unlicensed vehicles on the property. Third, all work must be performed indoors. Fourth, all materials, parts, and equipment related to this use will be stored indoors. Fifth, any area used for temporary storing of vehicles will be adequately screened by an opaque fence or wall. And sixth, if a dumpster is used to collect waste and trash related to this use, the dumpster will be placed either inside the existing building or within a masonry enclosure having a solid lockable wooden gate. Thank you.
Thank you. And it would be the expectation of the planning department then that were this use to be approved with those conditions, that those conditions would be followed?
Indeed, yes.
And if they were not, can you describe the ramification of that?
Basically, since the applicant has offered to accept these conditions as a condition of approval, if he was to receive approval and violate these conditions, his use and occupancy permit would be subject to revocation by the zoning administrator.
Thank you. So,
Could I ask a question? Does
Sure.
it mean if it is approved, that use is approved, and if he sold the property, the use is still there? So we have an extension, basically, of auto repair service on that corner,
Well-
which has now been, is really overgrown. So
Well,
we
what
have
I-
too much in the
but-
middle of a
but-
residential neighborhood and on a strange configuration.
Okay, so the zoning in this area is a little bit odd, but in many ways, it's typical of what we see, which is that this property, as you see here, is located here. It is zoned B31. Okay. The surrounding neighborhood is zoned R3. There's some R5s in here as well. So the commercial use of the property is already established, as well as the history of auto repair is also long been established. Indeed, the fact that it's an auto, that there are service bay doors and such like that, indicates that the property was intended to be used that way and has been used that way for some time. I wanted Mr. French to go through the conditions which have been offered by the planning department and accepted by the applicant, because I think that those conditions go to the very things that you are objecting to. And that currently, the property may be added, may be operated without any of those safeguards and protections, provided they get a conditional use. But were the use to be approved with the conditions that the planning department has offered and with the applicant has accepted, any violation of those conditions, that is, if there were, I think you said that there were cars being stored on the public right-of-way and being worked on outside, if that were to happen after, were this used to be approved with these conditions, that is a circumstance which could lead to revocation of the conditional use. If there were more cars being parked on the premises than he's represented, they have the capacity to hold, that as well. If there were any unlicensed vehicles, if there were any storage of any kind of equipment, materials, anything like that, outside of the four walls of the repair garage, those are all circumstances which could lead to revocation of the conditional use. And those conditions would run with the land. That is, any other operator who would come there would also be subject to those conditions. So the conditions that are being offered are pretty powerful in that they remedy the very things that you're complaining about. But without them, there is no way to stop what you're complaining about.
But my understanding is that it is approved now for the storage of material, of whatever. And so this, it'll be then a more aggressive use than just storage, if he's going to use it for servicing of autos.
Sure.
And
So it
Yeah.
is, at least this portion that we're talking about, is being sought to be approved for primarily use as a auto repair garage. It's just a storage, repair, and servicing of of motor vehicles, but then also the conditions offered by the planning department require that any storage be inside of the four walls. Also says that that there has to be, if there's any storage outside, that it has to be screened by an opaque fence, so that it cannot be seen from the outside. Given the limitations of the size of this particular structure, I would imagine, and the applicant has represented, that the majority of the interior space is going to be devoted to auto repair. Because once you locate 2 to 3 lifts inside of the building, you're going to greatly run out of any more available space. But the more important thing is that any storage would have to be either inside or behind a opaque fence. Opaque, what was it?
Opaque wall or fence.
And that's temporary storage, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Opaque wall or fence.
Yes. So, like, if you've driven around and seen any of those like chain link fences that have the like green screens from the, so it's like an 8-foot fence, and then it has like a green screen that blocks it out. What's on the other side?
Opaque fence wouldn't fit on that property anywhere, though. That's outlined.
Um,
For that to fit, because the rear is residential, and then the front, you can see pictures. That
Well,
truck-
but, okay, so then by what you just said is then any kind of temporary storage you just said would be incompatible for the use. So they
Right.
wouldn't be able to do it.
Right, so it's
So that
already
would get
eliminated.
away, that would do away with, again, what you're complaining about.
Or you brought up the fact, the points of where would his employees park and.
Ah,
oh,
yes, your
Lonzel
name's-
Davis.
I'm sorry.
I'm
Is that name again, sir?
Lonzel Davis,
Can you spell that first name?
Lonzell Davis.
Okay, you were saying.
You brought up the point about where would his employees park.
Mm-hmm.
And based off of the picture, and if you drive down, that truck that's there, it's actually in front of, there are no roll-up doors, so, I mean, they would have to be put on. But 4 cars won't fit without hanging out onto the sidewalk properly there. So employees.
Again, that would be a violation of the conditions that he's accepted at this point.
I understand, okay.
So my point is just that there are some real teeth that have been put in place with this proposal, given the conditions offered by the planning department, those conditions have been now accepted by the applicant, that would control a lot of these more offensive repercussions that you're talking about, or just sort of, ancillary effects of operation of auto repair garage here that you're complaining about are being addressed by the conditions which the applicant has accepted at this point, which gives the community the ability then to control any kind of, I guess, the extent of any repair operation that's located there.
Okay.
I think my concern is that the building now permits storage, so that's already allowed.
Well, it permits everything that's in a B3 zone.
Okay, well then why are we here if this is all permitted?
This particular use is what's called a conditional use, which
Yeah.
has to come before us.
Yeah, so it's permitted as a conditional use, which means it is not normally permitted, it's conditional. So what we're doing is.
Not entirely true.
Yeah.
So conditional use means it is something that is conditionally approved. So conditional uses are presumptive under the law in Maryland, are presumptively valid uses. And that hence why they're conditional, because they are conditionally valid, given so long as there are certain things, certain factors that are considered. But also, it allows the ability to place conditions on those uses, since it's only conditionally approved. So the threshold for getting a conditional use approved is somewhat lowered because it's a presumptively valid use. But the ability to place conditions on that use give the affected community the protection of being able to be insulated from whatever sort of maleffects may come from that conditional use.
Which is why, when the planning department presented the conditions and he agreed, we will adopt, assuming we approve this as conditionally, we will adopt those conditions as part of the approval, if there is such an approval. I do have a question. Mr. Tanner, there's a note on the data sheet that the subdivision appears not to have been perfected. I don't think that impacts what we're doing here, but I'm just curious as to what that means.
Well, the subdivision was approved by the board in November 3rd of 2015. And they have 1 year from that date to effectuate what the board would approved. And so far, there's no record that that has occurred.
And that would be a deed being recorded in land records?
It's recorded.
Yes.
It's recorded
It's recorded.
in the court.
It's possible
Yes.
that it hasn't caught up with the
Okay.
record yet.
It's recorded.
But they can ask for more time if they need that, but the board would have to consider that.
Okay.
So we just wanted to point out that while the board approved the subdivision to separate the residential from the business, we don't have verification that it actually has gotten a permit to.
Right.
You know,
And I don't think that impacts us here because we're only talking about the commercial piece anyway.
They still
Yeah.
have that.
Yeah.
That's correct.
I would like to turn
Sure.
it over to
Yes,
whoever
please.
wants. There's photographs that some of the neighbors have brought to me. One neighbor who wanted to be here but had a death in his family this morning has a
Sorry to
list
hear
of all of the violations that he's complained about over the past year. And there are also petitions from the neighbors, one block from each direction.
The question I had, were those violations from this particular portion of the lot?
It's that corner, and that's the problem.
So it's the
So that
adjoining
corner,
property?
this is such a little piece of
I know.
that corner.
But
And
that
so we
corner is
don't-
operated by a separate business though, right?
Yeah, well, this has not been operating.
So what
we
I'm
don't
saying
want
is,
any more.
he's not operating the corner to your knowledge, is that correct?
No, no.
That's a
However,
separate
he
lot.
just did tell us that, many of the cars that we thought were part of the other business in his back lawn, and that are, are not from the other business. There were 8 cars there this morning parked on grass. So, there are things that we are very concerned about.
Sounds like a conversation with the zoning administrator may be beneficial to help come up with a strategy to enforce all those violations.
And to find a bigger location for businesses that don't fit.
This particular site kind of evolved over time.
Yes, it was a beautiful house, and then a filling, that was torn down, and a filling station was put there. I'm old enough to remember, which was,
That's how it-
accepted by the people, but we could see past the corner.
That's how it became
yeah.
B3,
Right.
and it's been that way, and it's not necessarily compatible with R3,
No,
but
no.
we're stuck with the zoning,
Right. So, and we never go backwards, it seems. So,
I have a question, please.
Let's finish up with the opposition
Yeah.
first, then we'll turn back to you, sir.
So based off of the pictures, you can understand why we, came out, even though,
certainly.
it was.
Well, frankly, I could understand why you came out even without it, because you're talking about the operation of a repair garage in the middle of it's pretty notable from the zoning map. It's like a little island where the zoning for this particular property is B3, but then everything else
Truly is
around
an
it-
island there.
Yeah, well, everything else around it is R3. It's completely residential district. So I entirely understand why the community would be concerned and why they would want to not only just be here for the hearing, but also why they would go to the extent of getting the, circulating the petitions and the letters, and as well as getting photographs.
Do you want us to make the photos and the signatures part of the record, so we'll keep
Yes.
these?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
And, one last thing, so it's just the front portion you'll be using as
Yes.
the 4 bays, but 3 or 2 bays behind won't be,
No,
can't be used as storage or anything, correct?
no, it can be used for, storage, but maybe,
That portion of it will be used as mechanical and,
Well, the question I asked was, I asked that specific question when I looked at the drawing, but the answer, as I recall, was the portion that's in the residential zone, which is in back of his home, will not be used for commercial purposes.
well, that's still commercial, so the big garage out front is commercial, and the 4 garages behind it over to the side is still commercial.
The two are not, though, next to it.
No, it still is commercial zone.
yeah, the four behind is commercial.
I'm not sure about that, is that correct?
It is.
Yes, though,
Both structures are part of the B3.
Yeah,
Oh, are they?
big
Okay,
garage, yes.
okay, okay.
although, as I understood the applicant during a question and answer, he said that the repair garage use was going to be restricted to just the large building and would not include these 4 back here. Now, I think that the planning department conditions would apply to
The whole
all of,
entire lot.
that's correct. So to the extent that there's any storage and the like, those conditions would apply to that.
Okay.
And as Mr. Tanner suggested, if there's a problem, that's a conversation with the zoning administrator.
I'm Mike Hilliard. I'm the Community Service Director of the Harvell Community Organization, which is an umbrella over 27 communities in Northeast Baltimore.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you, sir. I applaud the Department of Planning's conditions. I applaud the chairs and the board's effort to explain the conditions. However, in my 13 years working in Northeast Baltimore, I would like to share with the board that enforcement is often not efficient or a practical matter in these cases. I understand that may not be something the board can consider in making its decision. If the board chooses to approve this, I would ask that they impose planning department's conditions on the use. And I would like to share with the board that the Frankfurt Improvement Association has also taken a position in opposition to this for the same reasons you've heard from the 2 other people. Thank you.
Thank you. And just as a note, we are mindful that the enforcement process can be a little uneven at times. I think that in a city of this size with the limits on available enforcement staff, frequently it's the result of, whichever wheel is the squeakiest gets the grease. And there are a lot of squeaky wheels in the city. So, that's not to temper any expectations amongst the community, because I think that they have a justifiable expectation that that operators of businesses and properties respect the laws, and that those laws then would be enforced. But I certainly do understand the community's expectations. I also understand the availability of enforcement. I think that frequently we've found that the most effective way to deal with that is kind of a overarching approach in the community. So, many hands make light work. So the more people who are operating with an eye out for respect for these conditions and not just going to the housing department staff or the enforcement staff, but frankly also getting their council people involved. It's frequently found that the council has rather excellent community relations staff that whose jobs really is to attend to these kind of constituent issues, and frequently they can bring rather impressive measures to bear in a short order of time.
I hear everything the chair's saying. You're looking at somebody who can be incredibly squeaky when he wants to, in utilizing everything the chair noted. And I would still respectfully submit that it's still a difficult process.
It's never easy.
And I would like to add to that, that the one neighbor listed, I think, about 40 complaint numbers that he made in the last few months. He said he had many more, but he didn't have time to go through them. So it's without, real enforcement from what's been happening there.
Interest is that the zoning administrator has coupled with housing code some of their enforcement, and they recognize this kind of issue, and they're coming up with more proactive enforcement staff and inspectors, and hopefully we'll see some better results.
I'm aware of that, Mr. Tanner. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and sir, you had some final comments you wanted to make?
Yeah, on the subdivision, because like I said, I always want to make sure that everything I do it right. On the subdivision, there's an open space. That's what do you call it? Commercial. So in the future development, I have to go through zoning and go through zoning. Like they said, if it's a fence, not I'm going to use that for anything. But right now it's an open space, big space behind the commercial, a big building. It's a square face behind the big building. So I'm trying to say that even if, let's say, because they were complaining about where the workers will park, if it's a green fence around it, maybe the workers can park in there, so that it won't
I
be.
see what you're talking about. It's this space right here,
Yeah, that's
like
a
a rectangular space
part of the
between,
commercial.
I guess that's bounded by the various, the commercial structure and then
Yes.
the two repair buildings. And finally is bounded by what I guess is the driveway behind your home.
Yes. And that open space is part of the commercial.
Okay, I see what you're saying. All right, anything further? Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, did you want your clap back? Okay, and we'll have Good. Who wants to start where? All right. Geez, I really want to talk about this telecom issue. No.
Well, I was going to say, you're going to be the only one.
All right.
That's
That's
a big pole.
Yeah,
It's a monster.
that's really large. What? Okay.
Do they go up in sections, I guess, or do they do?
Yeah.
They've got to.
It's 130 feet, and then the antennas sit on top of that another 20 feet.
Yeah.
So,
But still, I mean, one of the longest trailers I've seen is what, 50 feet?
Yeah.
well, when they first started, they were all 150 feet, and the communities were vehemently opposed. We had some long hearings. And basically, through experience, we've learned that they're pretty much protected by the federal
Government,
FCC.
Yeah.
and
Yeah, that's just wrong.
Spell it, spell the whole.
Sort of.
Cell phone service gets better.
Still, but
Right.
But I was surprised that there really wasn't any community opposition.
Yes, we've had those that have been rather contentious.
Yeah. Yeah, they are kind of, there's not direct involvement with residential.
Okay, and as far as Hazelwood Avenue, what's our feeling on that? Are we satisfied with the conditions that are there?
With the conditions, yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's vote. 2016-330, 133 East North Avenue was by consent. 2016-335, 1113 South Charles Street was postponed. 2016-337, 311 South Durham Street was by consent. 2016-338, 2908 Dillon Street was by consent. 2016-340, 1015 West Baltimore Street was postponed. 2016-341, 1816 Bird Street was by consent. 2016-344, 3734 Falls Road was by consent. 2016-345, 2016-346, 2016-347, 2016-348, 2016-349, 2016-350, and 2016-352. Various addresses between Robert Division and Lawrence Streets. Those were all postponed. 2016-351, 1210 Weldon Avenue was postponed. 2016-353, 1111 East Cold Spring Lane. I am a yes with planning department conditions.
Yes.
yes.
2016-354, 3200 St. Paul Street was by consent and revised to 3 restaurants instead of 4. 2016-335, 216 North Liberty Street was by consent. 2016-356, 1118 McDonough Street was by consent. 2016-358, 3145 West Street was by consent. And 2016-359, 4622 Hazelwood Avenue. I'm a yes with planning department conditions.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I'm abstaining on the other ones.
All right.
Would you be okay with 149 feet?
Well, the body-
I'm in that
yeah, I was gonna say, it's a
original
body, right?
neighborhood, you know, that may or may not be adversely affected by its unattractiveness. I know I can't see it from my house, but
I got Verizon. I'm gonna go sit in there and call you.
Marty's at the standard, I can't see it from
I got Verizon. I'm gonna go sit in there and call him.
Oh, yeah. Or better yet, stream some data.
Yeah.
Game 6.
It'll be interesting.
Go Cubs. I just want game 7. Hey, I told you we'd be 3 and 5. We lost to the Jets and we lost to Bye yesterday.
Yeah, I know.
Or Sunday.
All right, we're gonna come back.